When we left off, the house purchase drama had subsided and I was in my new home. What was apparently not in my new home were my two cats, who may or may not still be sharing that one brain cell. The last place Mom had seen the cats was on top of the kitchen cabinets, and that was also the location my mom could swear she'd heard a meow. Now, a good detective recreates the scene of the crime, so I hoisted myself up on the kitchen cabinets, not easy considering I didn't own a ladder yet, to have a look. Now, the oven sits on top of the tiny refrigerator, with another cabinet on top of that. However, that stack does not go all the way to the wall, and there's a false panel there. On top of the false panel is a giant hole. At the bottom of the giant hole were two beady little eyes staring back at me. "Buddy, there you are! What the heck are you doing down there? Don't you know curiosity killed the cat?" I scrambled to locate a screwdriver, no small accomplishment in the sea of boxes and suitcases. I may have set a record for removing a false panel, not easy given that all the screws were hidden behind things, including the refrigerator. However, upon extracting Ludwig from his predicament, I was alarmed to find that he was the only present cat. Where was Johann? Now, usually the two of them go everywhere together. They're twins. I called for Johann, I offered treats, but no Johann. Okay, maybe he gotten outside while the doors were open, bringing boxes in or out. Maybe he was under the cabinets. I went to bed thankful to have found Ludwig, but also very concerned that Johann might never show up again. That was a pretty depressing thought after we'd gone through. I woke in the middle of the night to a cat sitting on my chest. This in of itself is not unusual for my snuggly cats. However, upon petting the cat, it occurred to me that this felt an awful lot like Johann. I switched on the light, and there purring into my face with his bad breath was none other than one very happy Johann. "Where the hell have you been all day, cat?" I woke my mom up to tell her the good news. Both cats were finally accounted for. However, the next morning, Johann had again disappeared. This is when I discovered that Johann somehow found a way to climb under the kitchen cabinets. With him extracted from his hidey hole, I placed a heavy box of books over the hole up top and put the false panel back in place. I later discovered that I was missing some books, and it took me quite some time to remember that there was a box of books blocking the hole at the top of the cabinets. With that taken care of, I could finally focus on assembling my haul of IKEA furniture and taking care of immigration paperwork. Now, the DAFT visa is one of the easiest to get. You fill out the papers, mail them in, and then just follow the instructions and the letters the Immigration Bureau sends back. Simple. I mailed my papers in from Kent the day I got there. I also set up a registration appointment in Terneuzen, which I thought was the correct location for me. Turns out I actually live in the Gemeente Sluis and needed to register there, and oh, by the way, you can't register yet because you need permission first from immigration since you're buying a house and staying permanently. Reports online were that the application was always processed very quickly. I got busy settling into my new home and assembling that IKEA haul, and thoughts of the visa paperwork kind of went by the wayside. That's when I saw someone post on the DAFT Facebook group about how they had heard back from immigration in less than a week. A week? I was closing in on 3 weeks. I figured it was a couple weeks process and maybe would take a bit longer because I mailed the papers from Belgium. I called immigration. Immigration had no record of my application. The tracking from Belgian Post was inconclusive. To this day, I have no idea if B-Post lost my papers or immigration lost them. So back to the nearby town, I went to the library to print the papers out and send a second set, this time with Netherlands Post, and registered. It also occurred to me I needed to buy a printer. The following week, I was off to Germany for a business trip. My neighbor was kind enough to check the mail regularly for me while also taking care of my cats, and by Thursday, less than a week later, I had my papers to register for my Dutch citizen number. Now, there are two parts to this process. The easy part is to go to your gemeente and register. Mine is in the nearby town where I do my shopping, and they take walk-ins, so that was easy. The other part was to go to the IND. Now, the closest one to me was in Goes at the International Center. I was relieved when they said they could get me in the next day. The International Center gave me a temporary residence sticker good until November, by which time I'd already received my 2-year residence permit, and the Gemeente gave me my citizen number by email the same day I applied for it. Advantages of a small Gemeente, eh? With that taken care of, next up was registering for a Digi-D so I could get my business registered with the KVK. Now, for whatever reason, the Dutch are very fond of doing everything on paper and requiring you to come in person to appointments. While they do respond quickly by post, it's nowhere near as quick and easy a process as registering a business in the US, which takes literally less than 24 hours. The week after I registered with Gemeente and applied for a Digi-D, I had to go to England for a family vacation. The timing on this was not particularly good because I had acquired a new business which was not yet registered to operate and could not open the web store for because I didn't have a registered business or tax number. The earliest business registration appointment was Monday of the week I was in England. So I had to get an appointment the following Monday in Middelburg, which gave me a chance to check out another scenic town. The appointment took all of 5 minutes, which seemed a bit silly because I had digitally filled out the papers anyway, and all she had to do was approve them. We could have done this online and had it taken care of the previous week. With that taken care of, the wait began for my business tax number. That was Monday, and I was told it would arrive the following week. However, by Friday of that week, I had my tax number. With that, I was able to open my web store and fill my business account with the required 4,500 euros and have it signed off by an accountant. A couple weeks later, I was notified my residence permit was ready for pickup, making my presence in the Netherlands legal for the next 2 years, at which point I can apply for another 5 years in eventual permanent residency or citizenship. You might remember the problems we had with the realtor for the buyers in the US and their closing agent and loan agent. Yeah, it turns out the realtor had let her license lapse. In fact, the whole team for the buyers will have some legal answering to do after the funny business they pulled. Possible penalties for the realtor could include a huge fine and like 5 figures and losing her license. Her agency also got nailed hard for having an agent with a lapsed license. It seems the commissioner's office doesn't mess around with these things. So, moral of the story, it doesn't pay to be negligent and incompetent simultaneously.